Your class is complete. As we're getting started here with our Boer breeding show, I would like to introduce the judge for the day. This is Catherine Riley from Smithfield, Kentucky. Catherine grew up raising and showing club lambs and goats. She is currently the manager of the North American International Livestock Expo in Louisville, Kentucky.
Test. There we go. Hello. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited to judge here at the National Western, a great venue and a great experience, hopefully, for all our exhibitors and visitors as well. We're going to get off started with this young percentage doe class, a single entry, one that definitely could have used a lot more competition. She's one you like from the ground up. For a red doe, she's got plenty of foot and bone under, really massive through that chest floor, nice and wide and opened up through the center portion of her body. She's got some width at the top side of that skeleton as well. You're going to change her any, you're going to want to widen up that pin set a little bit and watch her as she tracks away from you. Just get her setting down just a tick more square. But that's being pretty picky on a nice little doe that really could have used a lot more competition in this class. Congratulations.
Results of the first class, kids 0 to 4 months. These are percentage does, doe kids, 0 to 4 months. Vernon Pottis, Hudson, Colorado.
top pair of does are pretty different from each other. I like bits and pieces about each of them. I like a lot of times you really want to combine these two does to make one that's pretty ideal in my mind. I'm going to start with the young lady's lighter headed doe. There's some pretty good size difference between the pair, but that's not her only advantage. I think she's one that's a lot bolder through the center portion of her body. She's more extended through that front 1/3, but really what gets me is the levelness of her hip, the length of her hip. She strides out a little bit better off of those rear two as she goes away from you. Is she as powerful when you get your hands on her? No, she's not as defined through her rack and into her loin as the dark-headed doe coming in second. I'd like to put a little bit more foot and bone under her as well to make her just a little bit more ideal for me today. Young man's dark-headed doe that's coming in second, a really flashy kind of doe when you get off to the side. One that's got some extension. She's pretty smooth-shouldered. She's one that's a little bit more I guess more compact in her design. She's one that's a little bit shorter through the center portion of her body. She's a little shorter and rounder out of her hip, making her stride just a little bit shorter and a little more choppier off of those rear two. You level that hip up, you give her just a little bit more rib through that forerib. I think she gets up a place in this class. Another really flashy doe coming in third here. One that I liked as soon as she hit the ring. She gives up a little too much width through that chest floor and into her forerib for me to really move her up a place or two. You fix that about her, she moves up considerably in my mind, really gets some more width in that shoulder, really bolden her out through that forerib. I think she fits together well. She's very balanced. She moves well, just falling apart in that front end just a little too much for me. Traditional doe next, one that's a little bit straighter in her shoulder, wants to get out just a little bit in that shoulder as she goes around the ring. She wants to kind of pull up in her loin a little bit the longer she's standing, but one that's got some width and dimension to her. She's really opened up through the center portion of her body. She's got a lot of width on the top side of her skeleton. Just like to pull that all the way down to the ground as she goes around the ring. A pair of does that are going to round out the class, ones that are fairly structurally correct. They've got some substance and some size to them. They're giving up a little bit in terms of composition when you get directly behind them. They want to flatten out of that pin set and drop down to the ground. Just a little bit too narrow for me. Just get a little too irregular in their top line as they get set to motion, but still a really competitive class. Congratulations to all these exhibitors.
Results of class of the second of doe kids 4 to 8 months. In 6th place, Jeremy Sanders, Odessa, Oklahoma. In 5th place, Blakely and James Clements and Hot Rancho, Snowfall Boer Goats, Australian Shepherds, Elizabeth, Colorado. In 4th place, Amanda Boschel from Brush, Colorado. In 3rd place, Cherokee Zarate, Three Feathers Boer Goats, Aledo, Texas. In 2nd place, Sammy Larena, Red Oak Ranch, Lippin, Texas. And in 1st place, Tandy Crawford. Now in is percentage doe kids 8 to 12 months.
We get in a really big, really competitive class. Some qualities in these does that really are exceptional all the way down through to the end doe here. The ones I'm going to start this class off with are going to be these three up top. I'm going to start off with this young lady in the green vest, a doe that I really like when she hit the ring. One of the best words to describe her is extremely complete. She's one that it's really hard to pick a hole in. When you get to comparing her to the other does, she's just as good, if not better, in just about all the spots that I look at. When she gets set to motion, she's really smooth, she's really angular. In those angles, she's one that really moves well, lots of flexibility out of her knee and her hock. You look at her front end, she's got a great head, lots of extension up through that neck, really flat through that chest floor, and I think that's what gives her a good advantage over the doe that's coming in second. Maybe the doe that's coming in second, a little bit longer body, a little bit longer hip, but the doe that wins the class is a lot stronger in her top line. She really holds herself up together nicely, got a little bit more extension in that front third and nice and flat in that chest floor. The doe in second, maybe a little bit more bone to her. She's got the same kind of quality as far as her hip shape, her rib shape, the overall look and eye appeal of her. One that I want her to strengthen up the center line of that top. As she goes around the ring, she picks it up, but the longer she stands, the softer that top line gets. She's just a little bit more prominent in that chest floor, one that's just a little too prominent in that breastbone when you compare it to the doe that leads the class, but still an extremely competitive doe and one that's got some really high qualities. Really attractive doe coming next, one that's really angular in that shoulder. She's long, she's level. She just gives up a little bit too much power for me. When you get your hands on her, she's one that's narrower through her rack and into her loins. She's flatter through that stifle when you compare it to the two does that come before her. But you really like the eye appeal of this doe. You like the smoothness, how she blends from front to back. She moves great when this young lady gets her set to motion. A doe coming next, one that's a little bit longer body than some that we've seen come before. She gives up a little bit in terms of foot and bone and overall eye appeal. She really affects me a little bit more through that hip and hind leg. She's one that just doesn't quite put it together well enough for me as she goes around the ring off that back leg. I think her pin set's just a little too narrow, one that's just a little too round in that hip. I like the touch she has from the top line. She's one that's really bold and opened up through the center portion of her body. Like to see her just a little bit more angular and a little bit more feminine through that front end to make her a little bit more complete for me, but a really nice complete kind of doe. A pair of red does coming next. One that's coming out kind of the white-legged one that's big-topped, bold through the center portion of her body. She's a little bit coarser through that shoulder, gives up just a little bit of flank and openness through the center portion of her body. She's one that's just a little bit flatter when you get her set to motion, watching her go from behind, but still a big-bodied, big-top kind of doe. Really love the solid red doe coming next. One that it really hurt me to put her this far down, but this is such a competitive class. She just is too conservative in her size for me. She's really one that's pretty complete all the way through. She's one that's just too small, too compact in that design, too early maturing for me, but one that I really like when I get my hands on her. Another really complete kind of doe. You love the look of this one from the side. She's clipped to a perfection. She's fitted extremely well. There's just simply not enough of her. You get your hands on her, she's just the narrowest to this top drive. She's the flattest through the center portion of her body. She's just too narrow to get all the way through these kind of does, but really complete, very fancy kind of doe. We move down through the center portion of does, ones that are big body, just don't have quite the eye appeal, quite the complete attractive package as the does that come before. Some big body does, ones that have got some shape to them. Just want to balance them up a little bit more and put a little bit more smoothness in their overall appearance for me today. But a really complete set of does. Let's give this class a big round of applause, please.
Results of doe kids 8 to 12 months. In 8th place, Sydney Beatty, Loveland, Colorado. In 7th place, Cherokee Zarate, Three Feathers Boer Goats, Aledo, Texas. In 6th place, Rachel Rolando, R-Squared Show Goats, Craig, Colorado. In 5th place, Lori Copeland, CLCC Show Goats, Ford, Kingston, Kansas. In 4th place, Lori Copeland, CLCC Show Goats, Ford, Kingston, Kansas. In 3rd place, Sammy Lorena, Red Oak Ranch, Lippin, Texas. In 2nd place, Jared Lindenfelser, 4L Boer Goats, Eric, Oklahoma. And the winner of the 8 to 12 month percentage doe females is Jared Lindenfelser, 4L Boer Goats, Eric, Oklahoma. So in the ring is the 12 to 24. Percentage does 12 to 24 months is in the ring. This is
I mean, really all you can say about this big doe is wow. I mean, she's extremely impressive just about any angle you look at her. You can't really falter when you get her set to motion because she's pretty smooth. She's got enough flexibility for me. Are there a few things I'd like to change? When you compare her to the two does that come behind her, she's maybe just a tick rounder in her hip, but honestly, that's about it. She's one that's not extremely thin and feminine through that front end. You look behind her and you can understand why. She's extremely massive over the top side of that skeleton. She's wide at the ground. She's not as fitted up in her legs as the does behind her are, but I think she's got as much foot and bone under her as the two does that come behind her. Really just a nice complete package, one that's going to be a heck of a mama, I hope. Does coming next, ones that are a little bit more challenging to pick apart. I think the advantage for me is going to be structural integrity and composition, and that's where the Cape Doe leads for me. She's one that's a little bit more angular in that shoulder. She's got a little bit more angle to her hip and to her hock. She strides out just a little bit more freer and flexible off of both ends of that skeleton. Really like the angularity she has up through that front third. Is she as wide? Is she as powerful? Is she as dynamic as the third doe? Not as much, but I think she's got just enough width for me to put everything together in a nice package for her to come in third. A really big back doe, one that's probably the widest in this class, pretty easily for me. You get your hands on her, she's extremely bold in her rack and wide and flat in that loin. She just gets a little bit too stiff, a little bit too round in that hip. She wants to pop up in that loin just a little bit more as she gets set to motion, one that needs a little bit more extension through that front third. A beautifully fitted doe coming next, one that you really like as she hits the ring. My problem with her is when you get stepped in behind her, watching her go away, I have a feeling it's a little bit more hair and not as much muscle under her, particularly through her hip and down into her stifle. You like her front end. She's extremely elegant, extended through that front. She's smooth in that shoulder. She's not as big over the top side of her skeleton. She's a little bit softer in her handle, particularly over her forehead, but I think it's her close connection in the back that gives me to put her this far down. Polka dot doe that's coming next worked her way up continually throughout the class. She's pretty complete in her overall look, and ideally she's one that's level in her top line, good in her hips, structurally correct. She's not as big, she's not as bold, she's not as heavily muscled as these does that come before, but I think time and a little bit more feed in her and she'll be in just the same condition as some of the does that come before her. Black doe coming next, one that gets a little bit plain in her package. She's got the right pieces and the right parts, one that's a little bit more refined in her feature, but one that you like for her extension up front. She gets just a little too narrow when you get directly behind her to move her up too much more. A nice set of does that are going to follow these, ones that have some balance, they've got some muscle, and I appeal to them. They aren't as smooth, they aren't as bold in that center portion of their body, they're not as wide over the top side of their skeleton. They may not have just as much foot and bone. We get into some structural issues as we move on down through this lineup where they're getting a little too irregular in their top line for me to justify moving them forward. But still a really competitive class. Does all the way through, I'd be happy to have at home. Congratulations to these exhibitors.
Results of percentage does 12 to 24 months. In 8th place, Sidney McCullough, Olathe, Colorado. In 7th place, Cherokee Zarate, Three Feathers Boer Goats, Aledo, Texas. In 6th place, Jeremy Sanders, Odessa, Oklahoma. In 5th place, Cherokee Zarate, Three Feathers Boer Goats, Aledo, Texas. In 4th place, Nick Pitlick Boer Goats, Jordan, Minnesota. In 3rd place, Bailey Bergram, BAB Boer Goats, Terre Haute, Indiana. In 2nd place, Emma Reathens, Patterson, California. And the winner of the percentage does 12 to 24 months is Ryan Throckmorton Show Goats, LaSalle, Colorado. He's my neighbor. I still can't say it. Next in is 24 to 36. Does 24 to 36 months. In the ring now.
We get some age on these does, and you can tell a couple of these have had kids. The one that I'm going to lead the class with, I think, is the most complete in my mind. She's easily the most structurally correct, and when she gets set to motion, she's really flexible off of both ends of that skeleton. Very feminine, very eye-appealing from that front 1/3. She's long, she's extended. She's got some center body to her. She's really opened up through the center portion of that body. She gets progressively deeper as you go back from that chest floor all the way back to that rear flank. She could be a little bit wider tracking when you get to being a little picky on her, but still I think a really nice, complete kind of aged doe. The red doe that's coming next, one that's just a little bit more coarse about her overall makeup. She gets just a tick more irregular about her top line. One that is big-bodied. She's soggy-middled. She's got some frame to her. She's one that's got some size and scale. I think she needs a little bit more foot and bone under her to be a little bit more balanced when you look at her from the side. I'd like to level her up in her hip, make her a little bit more flexible out of that hock. Young ladies traditional, that's going to round out the class. One that is in nice show condition for us. She's one that I give up a little bit too much in terms of structural correctness. She's one that does get a little bit too off in that hip. She's one that wants to get a little too round, really drive up under herself just a little bit too much. I appreciate the width and overall expansion that she has on the top side of that skeleton. Just need to square her up from front to back to move her up in this class. But still a nice set of 3 does. Congratulations to all.
Results of percentage does 24 to 36 months. In third place, Cherokee Zerata, 3 Feathers Boer Goats, Aledo, Texas. Second place, Vernon Potus. Geez Louise, Vernon. I work with Vernon. Hudson, Colorado. I'm having a really good time with names today. And in first place, Sammy Lorena, Red Oak Ranch, Lippin, Texas. Now in is 36 plus. Have the single entry, so your class is complete.
A true percentage doe standing here by herself in this last age class. One that is extremely feminine up through that front third. She's one that's really flat in that shoulder, very smooth, extremely extended through that neck and into her head. She's long across the top side of that skeleton. She's got some center body. She could use a little bit more mass when you get directly behind her. She gets just a tick flat in that lower stifle, but still one that I think can really progress the program in terms of extension and femininity. Congratulations. We'll see you right back.
So the winner of the percentage doe, 36 plus months, Blakely and James, Clements and Hot Rancho, Snowfall Boer Goats, Australian Shepherds, Elizabeth, Colorado. Next in will be the first and second place winners in each of the age divisions. First and second place winners in each of the age divisions for champion percentage female. Right behind this will be, we got percentage pair doe kids and percentage pair does. They'll come in right behind this class. From there, we will move into full blood, 0 to 4 months.
Well, a really nice set of percentage does we've got out here. Let's give all these exhibitors a big round of applause, please. Really high quality does all the way through these classes. Some of these classes were a little bit deeper, a little bit bigger than others, but I think once you get them standing out here, you can kind of see the direction I want these does to go. I want them to be structurally correct. I want them to be attractive. I want them to have enough shape, enough dimension to them, but they don't have to be overpoweringly muscular. They don't have to be overpoweringly dimensional. They just want to be really complete, I think is the right word. I think there's about 4 does out here that I really, really like. Ones that do have that completeness factor. They're ones that aren't extreme in any one measure but have enough of everything and put it together in a really attractive package. When you get to analyzing these 4 does individually, you like them all. You get to comparing them a little bit to each other a little bit more. You get to be a little bit more picky about them. I think there's one doe that you just simply can't get around. I'm pretty sure I said that about her in class. One that just brings a little bit more of the wow factor to her, and that's going to be this big doe in the center. Congratulations. You move this Cape doe in and analyze her a little bit more for reserve, and I think she's extremely competitive. I think she's one of those 4 does, and with these 2 does that come behind her, ones that I think are in contention for that reserve. You get to looking at her and comparing her to those 2 does that come behind her in class. I think she has just a little bit more flexibility. I think she's got just a little bit more extension through that front end. I think she's a little bit leveler, a little longer over the top side of that skeleton. She's going to end up being your reserve. Congratulations once again to all these exhibitors. A nice set of does.
Your reserve champion goes to Emma Reathens, and your champion goes to Ryan Throckmorton. That's your champion and reserve champion in the percentage does. Next in is the pair of percentage doe kids. Pair of percentage doe kids next in the ring. Results of the pair of percentage doe kids: in third place, Cherokee Zerata, Three Feathers Boer Goats, Alito, Texas. In second place, Lori Copeland, CLCC Show Goats, Ford Kingsdown, Kansas. And the winner of the pair percentage doe kids, Jared Landenfelser, 4L Boer Goats. Now in is the pair of percentage does. Results of the pair of percentage does: in second place, Cherokee Zerata, Three Feathers Boer Goats, Alito, Texas. And the winner, Tony Teepee. Now in, first class of full-blood doe kids, 0 to 4 months of age.
We're going to start off this full blood doe class with the pink doe up front, one that you really like. You can tell there's a good bit of age difference between this doe and the one that comes in second, but you like her extension. You like how she blends from shoulder into that rib cage. You like how wide and expressive she is over the top side of her skeleton. You're going to fix her anywhere. You're going to fix her in that tail set, really bring those pins set up just a little bit more, make her leveler, and make her a little bit easier moving off of those rear two. She's wanting to get just a little bit choppy as she goes around the ring, but that can improve as she gets a little more used to walking on that chain. A nice dark-headed doe coming in second, one that's really long-bodied, really extended out the front end. She's got some shape and some dimension to her when you get right behind her. She's a little bit bolder in that shoulder, wants to be a little bit tighter in that forerib, and I think that gives her a pretty big disadvantage compared to the paint that leads the class. But still, two really competitive, nice doe kids. Congratulations.
Results of full-blood doe kids, 0 to 4 months. In second place, Erica Ashby. And in first place, Sammy Lorena, Red Oak Ranch, Lippin, Texas. Now in, full-blood doe kids, 4 to 8 months.
Really nice pair of red doe kids to start off this class. Young lady, you're going to want to move in front. There you go. I'm going to start off with this young lady's doe, one that's got a little bit more extension to her. She's a little bit longer bodied. She's a little bit truer and more genuine at the ground. When you watch this doe walk away from you, she steps out square on the corners of her body. Really like the hip structure of this doe. She's long, she's level. She takes a good flexible stride off of both ends. She's got a little bit more skin than the doe that comes in second. That kind of takes away from her overall eye appearance or eye appeal through that front end. But I mean, you certainly like the extension that she does have. She's got a good head, big body on her, one that's got a pretty good back on her as well. Young man's red doe that's coming in second, one that's a little bit more compact in her design. She's a little bit closer to the ground. She's one that wants to track just a tick narrower off of both ends of her skeleton. You really appreciate the handle of this doe. She's one that's extremely wide and very expressive to the touch, particularly over her loin and then down into her hip. I think she just gives up a little bit of shape when you get directly behind her and watch her go away from you, but a really nice, very complete kind of doe to come in second. Young lady's traditional doe coming next, one that's got some length and some extension out the backside of that shoulder. She's extremely long-bodied. I think right now she's kind of in an odd growth curve for her. She's one that's longer than she is tall right now. I think that'll correct itself as she continues to grow and mature. I like the body shape that she has. I like the rib shape. I like the hip design and the hip, then how square she is when you watch her go from behind. You want to give her a little bit more chest floor width as you watch her come towards you, and you want to make her just a little bit taller, bring her up off the ground to make her balance out a little bit more. The long-haired doe coming next, one that's got some body to her. She's maybe one that's a little too deep for me right now. She's maybe just a little too mature in her overall rib pattern. Makes me think she's not going to get very big when she gets later on down the line. She's one that wants to be a little bit more off in her hip connection. As you watch her go away, she gets a little bit shorter, a little bit more rigid off those rear two, but still a big-bodied, very mature kind of doe that's got a big top in her as well. The unhappy doe that's going to be glad to leave the ring, I'm sure, is one that's extremely expressively made. She's one that's got a lot of shape to her. She's not as wide. She's not as opened up through the center portion of her body as the doe that comes directly in front of her. I think that'll continue to get better as she continues to grow and age. She's one that's extremely extended up the front side of that shoulder, one that's got some length and extension from there back. A Cape doe coming next, so one that's just a little too compact in her design. She's a little too close to the ground, a little too hip high for me right now. Hopefully that'll correct itself as she goes on down the line. This is just kind of an odd age for these does, depending on which direction their body's wanting to go. But one that's really opened up through the center portion of her body, really wide over the top side of her skeleton. The three does that are going to wrap up this class, ones that just get a little too narrow for me or their overall design, we pull them apart from front to back. They'll move up really easily for me. Congratulations to all these exhibitors. Let's give them a big round of applause.
Results of full-blood doe kids, 4 to 8 months, in 8th place. Tandy Crawford, Hunker Down Boers, Ordway, Colorado. In 7th place, Cherokee Zerata, Three Feathers Boer Goats, Aledo, Texas. In 6th place, Sydney Beatty, Loveland, Colorado. In 5th place, Cherokee Zerata, Three Feathers Boer Goats, Aledo, Texas. In 4th place, Lori Copeland, CLCC Show Goats, Ford, Kingsdown, Kansas. In 3rd place, Vernon Pottis, Hudson, Colorado. In 2nd place, Ryan Throckmorton, Throckmorton Showgoats, LaSalle, Colorado. And the winner of the full-blood doe kids 4 to 8 months, Jeremy Sanders, Odessa, Oklahoma. Now in 8 to 12, and this is a big, big class. 2 pages. Full-blood does, 8 to 12 months. In the ring now.
Let's give a big round of applause to everyone that's on the rail side. Thank you guys for bringing these does out. They're really nice does. There's just some things about these does in the center that I like a little bit more. I'll get to analyze them a little bit more here in a second and let you know exactly what that is. So thank you guys for bringing them out. Let's give them a big round of applause.
So everyone besides the center two have been released at this time.
Well, an extremely competitive class. Making that first pull was pretty tough when you get these girls back out here and you get to look at them and analyze them a little bit more and be a little bit more picky on some of them and decide sometimes average isn't good enough in some of these does, because a lot of these does are really nice in some places, but they may just be average in others. I think this top trio really of does here aren't average. I think the doe that leads the class, I think she does so when she hits the ring. I mean, she moves extremely, extremely well. I think there's two things I want to change on her. I want to make her wider tracking just a tick when you get behind her. She wants to narrow up at the ground ever so slightly, and I want to put just a little bit more bone on her. But other than that, I think this is a pretty nice doe. She's one that's got some extension. She's got a bold head and jaw on her. She's got some width and dimension when you get your hands on her. She's extremely wide and flat over that loin. She's nice and level through that hip. She moves good off of those rear too. She's one that's got some depth of body but still very shallow in that chest floor. Gets progressively deeper as she goes back and has a great turn to that upper rib. Really nice doe to lead the class. The doe that's coming in second, this paint doe, she's one that kind of, you got to look at her a few times because you can get a little deceived by her color pattern, but one that's extremely attractive from the side. She's extremely angular in that shoulder, really long out the front side of that shoulder, long out the back side of that shoulder, nice and level through her hip. She's just not as big, not as bold, not as dimensional as the doe that led the class. She's one that does give up a little bit of foot and bone. She's one that gives up a little too much width from behind if you analyze her against the doe that leads the class. But when you analyze her against the doe that comes in third, one that does have a good bit more shape when you get directly behind her. Her pin set's a lot wider than the doe that comes in third, and that's what really gives her that advantage. A really big-bodied, big-scaled kind of doe coming in third, the spot top doe. One that came in first, and I was trying to decide whether to pull her that first time, and I'm sure glad I did because she just gets better and better the longer she stands here. She's got some body, she's got some boldness and some rib shape to her. She gets a little bit more average when you step in behind her. She wants to narrow up and kind of wedge to her pin set, narrow up at the ground a little bit too much for me, but a really angular kind of doe, one that you love her rib cage, one that you love that rear flank to her. Just a really attractive doe. Doe coming next, one that is really big bodied. She's big, bold ribs. She's big topped. She's got a lot of shape to her. She gets a little bit coarser in that shoulder, a little bit flatter in that chest floor. One that just gives up a little bit of that eye appeal at the top side of that shoulder into her head and neck. She's a little bit flatter about that head. You love the muscle shape that she's got. I want to square her up in that front foot and move her up and extend her through that front end just a little bit more to me, more ideal for me. A doe coming next, once again, another doe that's really big-bodied, big rib, big-backed. She just gets a little bit too weak out the backside of that shoulder a little bit. The longer she stands, the worse she gets. You like her when you set her to motion, but as she stands here, you can see that that top side of that shoulder and the top side of that hip is higher than the center portion of her body. Love the fit job on her. She's beautiful when you look at her from the side. One that's a really attractive doe. Just need to strengthen her up in her top line to move her up in my mind. A doe coming next, one that's just a little bit too conservative for me. She's one that's a little too compact in her overall design. She may be just a tick full, giving her a little bit too round of an appearance for me. Wants to get up in that loin just a little bit more, but a really attractive doe, extremely smooth in that front end. Got a lot of shape when you get behind her. A really deceiving kind of doe coming next. I love the foot and bone work on her. I love the massiveness that she's got to the top side of that skeleton. She gets a little tight in that forerib, but really what made me pull her as I was watching her go from behind, she just gets way too narrow for the amount of shape that she's got up top when you analyze her at the ground. But I love the center body of her. Want to clean her up in that front end and get her tracking a little bit better to move on. As we go down through these does, I think we lose a little bit of shape to them. I think they get a little bit flatter through the center portion of their body. They get a little bit narrower as you get behind them. They get a little bit rounder out of their hip, a little more irregular in that top. But some really nice does here, ones that can make your herd change your herd depending on what kind of buck you made them to. So congratulations to all these exhibitors, an extremely competitive class of does.
Results of the full-blood does, 8 to 12 months of age. In 8th place, Jared Lindenfelser, 4L Boer goats, Eric, Oklahoma. In 7th place, Nick Pitlick, Pitlick Boer goats, Jordan, Minnesota. In 6th place, Giovanni Beretta, BAB Boer goats, Terre Haute, Indiana. Terre Haute, Indiana. In 5th place, Nick Pitlick, Pitlick Boer goats, Jordan, Minnesota. In 4th place, Emmett Fanning, Oak, Nebraska. Third place, Piper Fisher, TK's Grand Boers, Hominy, Oklahoma. Second place, Jared Lindenfelser, 4L Boer Goats, Eric, Oklahoma. And the winner of the full-blood Doe Kids, 8 to 12 months, goes to Matthew Sinclair, Wellington, Colorado. Next in is the full-blood does, 12 to 24 months. Full-blood does, 12 to 24 months of age.
a little bit more challenging than I first gave it credit for all the way down through this class. We're going to start off with two exceptionally nice does, pretty different in their package. I'll give you that pretty easily. The young lady's doe that leads the class, I think she's one that you really got to like from just about every angle. She's one that you start at the top of her nose, go all the way down that shoulder, how smooth. It's a nice fluid line, really smooth and flat in that shoulder. Got enough foot and bone under her to balance her out, not overly, excuse me, I'm not quite sure how to say that. Not a super amount of foot under, but enough to balance her out. Big forerib in her, huge, massive top when you get your hands on her. She's round in that rib shape, really opened up in that forerib. Extremely fresh to the touch, in perfect condition in my mind. One that's got a lot of top shape, a lot of hip shape. She's one that tracks wide enough for me at the ground and still maintains a really exceptional level of femininity. The young lady's doe that comes in second, not to take anything away from her, I think she's a really, really nice doe. It's going to be hard to get around that doe that comes in first because of her freshness. This doe's got a little bit more condition on her. She's a little bit softer in her appearance, and that if that's what you prefer, full force go with this kind of doe because she's really nice as well. She does give a little bit more foot and bone. She's not as smooth in that chest floor and in her shoulder. She's got a little bit more skin under that jaw. One that's not as feminine through that front end. Still very elegant, still very extended, not as slim. She's one that doesn't have the power when you get on top side of that skeleton. She narrows up at the ground just a little bit more, but extremely maternal in that rib shape. One that's soft in that rear flank. She is shallow in that chest floor and gets progressively deeper as she goes back. One that I just want to give a little bit more power to when you get directly behind her. She wants to flatten out just a little bit on that lower stifle, but one that's an extremely, extremely nice doe. I'd be happy to have her come along with me. A young man's doe coming next, one that follows the pattern of the doe that led the class. She's a little bit thicker about that chest floor, a little bit thicker about her neck, a little bit shorter coupled in her overall appearance today. She's one that's got a big top, really round in that rib shape, long enough body to balance her out, and got some shape from behind. She needs a little bit more foot and bone under, needs to slim her up in that front third to move up for me. Kind of a doe that breaks the pattern here with these top three is this doe coming next. She's one that's a little bit larger scaled, bigger bodied kind of doe, a little bit softer in her appearance. She's the narrowest when you get your hands on her. She's the narrowest when you get directly behind her. I like the femininity and the curve that she has in that neck and head. One that's soft and deep in that rear flank. Just need to see a little bit more power to really compete with these does that come before her. The spot top doe coming next, one that follows that same pattern as being very maternal about her appearance, really big bodied, soggy middled. She gets a little too plain for me in her overall appearance, particularly when you analyze that hip and hind leg set, the way she goes around the ring, just a little too average to really compete with these does that are coming before. But I like the way, the shape of her rib shape, it's nice and round, really curves out from her spine extremely well, just not wide enough underneath. Red doe that's going to wrap up the top five here, one that's got some power and got some substance to her. She's one that's a little bit closer to the ground for me. When you look at her, she's a little too deep to be as small as she is, but I like this, the width that she's got on the top side of that skeleton. Needs to track wider off of both ends of her skeleton, need to extend her up just a little bit more. We go on down through these does. There's ones that just don't have enough shape for me. They get too flat in that forerib, too narrow in that chest floor, and just too narrow when you get behind them. They've got some style, they've got some balance. There's some structural issues as we continue on down this line, but some does that have got some really nice qualities to them. Congratulations to all these exhibitors. Let's give them a round of applause.
Results of full-blood does 12 to 24 months. In 8th place, Sydney Beatty, Loveland, Colorado. 7th place, Sammy Lorena, Red Oak Ranch, Lippin, Texas. In 6th place, Jeremy Sanders, Odessa, Oklahoma. In 5th place, Jared Lindenfelser, 4L Boer Goats, Eric, Oklahoma. In 4th place, Jared Lindenfelser, 4L Boer Goats, Eric, Oklahoma. 3rd place went to Sammy Lorena, Red Oak Ranch, Lippin, Texas. In 2nd place, Piper Fisher, TK's Grand Boers, Hominy, Oklahoma. And the winner of full-blood does 12 to 24 months goes to Paige Pence, New Carlisle, Ohio. Next in is the full-blood does 24 to 36 months.
Well, a really nice class of older does here. The one that leads the class, I think, is extremely youthful in her overall appearance. She's angular in that shoulder. She's extended through that neck. She's really long and extended out the backside of her shoulder, nice and level in that hip. Tracks really well as you watch her go around the ring. She's got enough flexibility. She's got plenty of foot and bone under. One that's just a really nice package as you're looking at her from the side or from behind. The doe that's coming in second there, one that wants to be just a tick softer in those rear pasterns. One that wants to be just a little bit rounder in that hip, but a really nice, big, broody kind of doe, big head on her. One that maybe needs a little bit more extension, could use a little bit more youthfulness about that head and into her neck, but one that you certainly appreciate the boldness of rib and the width as you get directly behind her. Another big-bodied, big-footed kind of doe is the one coming in third. One that just gets a little bit off in her overall eye appearance. As you're looking at her from the side, she gets just a tick irregular about that top line, wants to give up just a little too much foot and bone to really balance her out as you're looking at her from the side. You like the width, you like the dimension that she's got in front and behind. Just need to level her up in her overall design to really move her up in this class. Another big body doe coming next, one that's really bold in the center portion of her body. She's just a little too narrow in that chest for a little bit too narrow as you get directly behind her. She needs just a little bit more width all the way through to really move up in this class, but got some extension to her, and certainly one that you can see can make some production out of her. A red doe that's certainly hated to wrap up the class with, as she's a really nice doe, just one that's getting a little too out-horsed in this class today. She's just the smallest, most compact in her design, just the flattest in her overall shape today, but still a really nice red doe that can compete later on. Congratulations to all these exhibitors.
Results of the full-blood does 24 to 36 months of age. In fifth place, Cherokee Zerata Three Feathers Boer Goats, Aledo, Texas. In fourth place, Miss Kardashian. In third place, Cherokee Zerata Three Feathers Boer Goats, Aledo, Texas. In second place, All About the Bling. And the winner of the full-blood does 24 to 36 months is Piper Fisher, TK's Grand Boers, Hominy, Oklahoma. Now in is full-blood does 36 plus. Right behind them we'll bring back the first and second place winners of each age division for champion and reserve champion full-blood doe.
a really big-bodied, big-base doe to start this class with. When they get to this age, for this doe to hold up and look like this is extraordinary. She's one that you really like from the top of her toe, or the top of her nose to the end of her tail. She's really level out the backside of that shoulder, all the way from the top, the end of her neck, all the way to the base of that tail. Pretty much you can lay a line on. She's one that's got a lot of foot and bone under, gets progressively deeper as you go from her chest floor all the way to that rear flank. She's one that's bold and opened up through the center portion of her body. A lot of width and dimension when you get your hands on her and get directly behind her. A really exceptional doe to start the class with. A little more challenge between second and third. I opted to go for the doe that's a little bit more feminine, a little bit wider out the backside of that shoulder. One that you really like, the smoothness of her shoulder, the levelness of her top line, and the width of her pin set as you look at her from behind. She has given up a little bit in terms of foot and bone and width when you get your hands on her, but I think the levelness of her top line, the strength in her feet and legs works to her advantage today. Young lady's doe that's coming in third, one that you really like, the foot and bone, the width and overall power about her. She gets to be a little bit too heavy in her condition for me today. That makes her get a little more off in the top side of that skeleton. Wants to round out of that hip just a little bit too much, get a little too soft on those passengers as she goes around the ring. Young man's red-legged doe coming next. One that you do like the width and dimension all the way through about her. She gets a little bit coarser in her overall design, giving up a little bit of foot and bone for me when you compare her to the doe that comes right before, but still a big-bodied, round-ribbed kind of doe that's got a big top in her. A doe coming next, one that you like at first glance at her as she comes in the ring. The longer you analyze her, the straighter that she gets out of that hip and into her hock. She just doesn't have enough flexibility for me out of her hock or out of her knee. She just doesn't extend quite as far as I'd like her to. She may be just a little too full for me today. She wants to get up in that loin just a little bit more than I'd ideally like. The does that we're going to round out the class with, ones that are just getting overpowered today. They're ones that are just a little bit too flat in their overall design, just giving up a lot of shape and overall dimension, but still a very nice class of age does. Congratulations to all these exhibitors.
Results of the full-blood age does, 36 plus months. In 6th place, Nick Pitlick Boer Goats, Jordan, Minnesota. In 7th place, we're going to start there, I guess. 7th place, Ashley Schilling Boer Goats and Livestock, Fort Collins, Colorado. 6th place, Nick Pitlick Boer Goats, Jordan, Minnesota. In 5th place, Sydney Beatty, Loveland, Colorado. 4th place, Red Crown LLC, Aztec, New Mexico. In 3rd place, Cherokee Zerata, Three Feathers Boer Goats, Aledo, Texas. In 2nd place, Blakely and James Clements and Hot Rancho Snowfall Boer Goats, Australian Shepherds, Elizabeth, Colorado. And in 1st place, Bailey Bergam, BAB Boer Goats, Terre Haute, Indiana.